Colour correction is a process whereby the colour in each shot is balanced and appears natural to the viewer, with the colour in each shot matching the next. It involves adjustments to colour and luminance. It's a process used by all video production, studio, editors and colorists, whether small independent businesses, right up to large Hollywood productions. The first step in correction is making sure that any white objects in the footage look white. This is called white balance. White balance refers to the colour temperature at which white objects on a film look white. This is usually a process carried out during the filming to make sure that the white object's hue and skin tone are properly captured. Sometimes though, it's not always the case. Often, even if the white balance has been carried out during filming, some adjustments will be required. Perhaps the light at the shoot was a bit low, or the internal lighting at the location has resulted in an orange hue. This means colour correcting the footage so that it looks natural. Colour correction comes in many forms, and most modern colour manipulation is digital. However, there are some principal tools which can help get the colour right. A three-way colour corrector has 3 colour wheels, which allow the user to adjust the colour properties of 3 luminance tones: shadows, midtones, and highlights. Scopes are a useful tool when monitoring your colour correction adjustments. Most importantly, scopes will help you keep the footage within the IRE limits. IRE is a scale set by the Institute of Radio Engineers that measures luminance levels. If you want to send your video to broadcast, you must stay within the IRE limits. Video has 3 channels: red, green, and blue. In the RGB Parade, each colour has a waveform representing the intensity of the colour from left to right. The closer the 3 channels match, the more balanced your image will be. The scope is useful when adjusting the temperature and colour balance of your footage. The waveform scope displays the luma, or brightness levels, from left to right on your image. The scale starts at 0, which is blacks, and goes up to 100, which are whites. Everything in between 40 to 60 IRE represents your midtones. Anything beyond 0 or 100 will either be underexposed or overexposed. Broadcasters may not accept your video if you have levels over these limits. A waveform that is more spread out on the IRE scale gives the footage more contrast, while a waveform that's more concentrated toward the middle of the IRE scale will make the image look flatter. This scope is a different representation of your red, green, and blue channels. It focuses on hue and saturation. Hue is the colour balance, and saturation is the amount of colour. The further these pixels are spread out, the more saturated the image is. The red, magenta, blue, cyan, green, and yellow larger squares on the vector scope represent HD limits. Again, it's important to stay in these limits if you're sending your video to broadcast. Your goal is to first identify any objects in the shot that should be white, and then adjust the colour temperature until they appear so. There's no one-size-fits-all, but there is a general process. If you're using Adobe Premiere, you can use the Lumetri Scopes colour processing tool. Looking at your footage and the RGB scope, make slight adjustments to the temperature control, either warmer or cooler, to even out the levels on the RGB scope and look at the effect on white objects. Then, looking at your footage and the Luma waveform, adjust the black and white levels to create a greater spread of tones. You'll see the image start to have more contrast. Next, looking at your footage and the vector scope, you can now adjust the colour saturation in the image. To add colour to the image, adjust the saturation control and note how the vector scope populates. Be sure not to go beyond the limits on the vector scope to ensure your image is not overly saturated. Whilst colour correction can do a lot for improving your footage, it's not a magic wand, and so it's important to ensure the footage is captured correctly in the camera. Like most things, good execution comes with knowledge and experience. So if you're new to using colour correction, be patient, make small adjustments and make them slow.